Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Dragons Dogma 2. Today we're covering each of the vocations of the game with a unique tip for each. Things you might not have known that you could do that can be really handy or just straight very efficient for your gameplay compared to not using them. But let's just get started. We'll run down the list starting with Fighter. For Fighter, it's not necessarily a mechanical tip that I want to give you, but just pretty much the best ring you can run. Fighters have access to Ring of Requital, which is just a ring that gives you this temporary boost of strength after a successful deflect. That's essentially a parry with your shield. That strength boost for about 30 seconds, which is a really nice concept. The thing is, as it turns out, the strength boost is actually about a 15% increase according to data mining. Naturally, the higher your strength on a strength-based vocation, the more damage you're gonna get. The thing is, percent boost to your main damage stat are actually quite rare in this game compared to the original, and therefore I think they're more valuable because of that. Of course, you might be someone that just never counters as a fighter, but then I wanna ask, why are you playing a fighter? That's their most unique, awesome detail, and you can counter even the big enemies. You should be able to maintain this pretty hefty buff since it lasts long enough throughout an entire fight, which will really help with your lower DPS since you're a vocation that's more about being defensive and has a little bit less DPS at the base level compared to the vocations. So I rate this ring very high for this effect, and to get it you just need to come south to the volcanic region area. This house here, the Windwalker's home, you'll meet an elf and a dwarf, and the dwarf will ask you to escort him to the nearby town where there's a spring for him to recover his back. By doing that, you unlock the magic archer vocation, and you also get this ring as a reward. Plus there are other ways to get the ring, and it's well worth having one equipped if you're playing fighter, in my opinion. For the second vocation then, we of course have the archer, which has some cool base details that I recently learned. Now if you're just going to do a basic loose, you're able to send out some shots with an auto aim feature. This is really nice. You may have noticed that when you're doing a sprint or certain actions, by doing this loose you'll do a special attack, where as you can see I'm kind of sliding, moving and attacking at the same time. If you've got a core skill you can jump and kick, and then that sends you flying back, and then you can do the loose. All of that's really cool, but the main thing you'll be doing is doing steady shot to channel a shot, accurately fire, aim for the weak point and send out a hit. Steady shot is dealing more damage than the basic loose. It makes sense, but it's good to know that that's literally how it works. But did you know that this sliding shot is actually a steady shot, which means it's dealing more damage than a basic loose, and you're not having to take the time to channel, you're not static so that you can easily move around the fight while, doing this slide. And then there's the jump bounce, which is awesome because you're getting a lot of mobility while also firing off that steady shot. I find this is the best way to reliably use those temporary shots like the losing shot or explosive shot. You could pop one of those arrows in and then pop it with the actual impact and shot as you fly away, especially when you're choosing to run, say, the Ring of Proximity, which strengthens the bow attacks the closer you are to your target. So if you're doing a lot of this moving steady shot trickery and bouncing and evasive maneuvers, you're actually increasing the damage of that by running that ring. So I just like it for the mobile flowy combat. Next up we have our mage, though in this case it's for a pawn, because personally I think mages are much better when you have them as a temp pawn or a main pawn. As a main pawn you're obviously able to mess with their skills that they're currently running. In my case I'm always running the ultimate skill, especially on a pawn. Even though it consumes all their stamina, it gives us infinite stamina, which is ridiculously valuable. Then I'm running celerity every single time as an AoE haste buff, because that's attack speed or cast speed, which is insane in combat, and then the movement speed for traversal is wonderful. On top of that, I love running Halidom, which is basically a cleanse. If I ever have a negative debilitation on me, this blue aura, I can walk into it and get rid of that. That can be amazing for a nasty damage over time, whether that's toxins or very commonly fire. It keeps me and my pawns alive really well. And then the fourth thing I always go for is some kind of weapon boon. And if I'm planning on hunting something specific, I'll intentionally pick something before I leave town. So if I'm going to go hunt some drakes that are weak to ice affinity, it's very effective. But also, if you're unaware, you can have your mage do these things for you on command. By using the help command, they will try to kind of answer the issue. Now, if you don't have full health like I don't have right now, often they'll just cast the heal like the other one did. Since I have two mages in the party right now, just for this random example, one did the one did the other. But this gives me the celerity buff, which gives me the movement speed, which allows me to traverse the land, which, when a lot of the time that we spend in this game is just running through the world, being able to double up the speed that you're actually running, it's well worth the effort. And if you ever need to, just press the help command and they'll try to work out what it is you'll need. Obviously, they're just going to try use the heal at first, but they'll cycle through and then you can maintain these buffs as you go by doing that. Just press it once, see what they do. If you need to press it again, that should be all it takes. But mages in a party with this setup, I can't live without it. Moving forward, we have our last starting vocation to talk about, the Thief, which has two that I'm going to tell you about. First up is your master skill. This allows you to expend stamina but evade attacks, but that also counts towards yourself. When you're doing the Thief kind of master skill quest where you go to the nameless village, they give you a fake out kind of self-damaging inflicting explosive. However, if you use this while using your true ultimate, you will simply evade the self-damage part of this ability. So in combination, these are actually really effective. If you're ever dealing with enemies that, you need to stagger, you want that explosion. Maybe you want an AoE to hit multiple targets like the little goblins or wolves or something. Maybe you want to get a quick fire buff because you're dealing with a hairy enemy that's weak to fire. There are many ways and reasons to use this combination, and it is very effective when you do so. But I think it's pretty well known. So here's another trick. From ability, you can use blast powder as a pre-placed mine, and if you activate it while you're in the air, it kind of causes this random glide effect. This is best combined with the concussive blast style weapon skill. If you do that blast while you're in the air, you extend your air time as well. Combine the two and you start to float through the air a lot further. Go for one of the splitter spins at the end of that and you'll actually horizontally move rather than throw yourself down like normal, and it allows for some seriously big gap mobility as the Thief, even further than say a levitate in my experience. Now we come to the warrior. For this one, I just have a nice mobility trick. It is the extended lunge. You get this ability lunge and you can upgrade it. I believe it's ravening lunge, and by channeling it you can run into enemies, pin them to walls, deal damage. It's fine, but I much prefer it as a mobility option, as my fourth pick for literally just getting around the world. If you channel that out, you can sprint and hold it and just avoid hitting walls or terrain or even enemies, and you can use it to kind of run and sprint down roads. Now if you combine that with having a pawn mage with celerity or high celerity, that will give you the haste buff, which is, as we've talked about, a movement speed buff. Combine that movement speed increase with the actual lunge that you're holding, and I swear you go so much faster. It is absolutely incredible for getting around the world, and I think it's one of the best, if not the best, weapon skills to do that. And again, because we do a lot of running around this world, speeding that process up is really nice to have, and warrior unexpectedly is one of the fastest vocations because of this combination. Next up then we have the Sorcerer, which has a very potent skill. We're talking about spell hold, which allows you to basically charge up an ability, a spell, and then hold it in yourself. You can go ahead and charge up a spell and then you store it, and then you can see that it becomes a lit up spell on the bottom left. What's pretty cool about this is that it's pretty instant, it's ready to go and be unleashed. So at any time I can just drop this to open a fight. Or we can combo this by, say, doing a normal version of the spell, channeling that out, dealing great damage, doing whatever we want to do, and then I can instantly send out another spell. No problem, no cooldown, it's just very effective DPS, and we can do that with lots of different cases. But something I didn't realize wasn't more common knowledge is the fact that you can do this with master teachings, like Meteoron. The really potent spells that you cannot quick spell. The problem obviously is how long it takes to actually do this, how stamina consuming it is, and usually one ultimate's not going to kill a big boss, it's going to do great damage. If you could channel out 2 of these even at the opening of a fight, that could be very potent, and you indeed can. I guess the reason people are unaware of this is because spell hold does not let you do this, but high spell hold actually does. It doesn't tell you in the description that that's how it works. It says advanced form of spell hold consumes less stamina when casting the stalled spell, so it's like a cheaper version of the spell. Awesome, but kind of important to let us know that it actually unlocks ultimate spell holding. So let's channel out this ultimate spell, the Meteoron. I'm not going to let it go. I can press high spell hold and store it. And now it's in the staff, as you can see. And as you can see at the bottom right, it is charged and ready to go. So I could open a fight with Meteoron, allowing me to channel this out and absolutely smash the target to start with, and then send out another one. And as you can see, there is no channel time. There's that delay where I have to kind of hover in the air to drop it, but that is 2 Meteorons cast back to back, which is ridiculously strong. It consumes about 70 to 80% of my stamina to do each of them, so obviously you're going to fall down when you do that, but you can always consume stamina recovery food, or just store the one and use the one, whatever works for you, whatever you prefer. The fact that you can do this though is very potent, and I would recommend you give it a try. Next up on the list then is the Mystic Spearhand, and for this one I have some cool movement tech options that allow you to get a lot more verticality for this less mobile vocation, out of combat at least. Let me explain. You have the kind of core persistent skill of Redoubted Bolt. If you jump and unleash a charged Redoubted Bolt, what happens is you get some air hang time. You hover in the air and also get a little bit of pushback. You can turn this in the midair. This means that you can get this kind of air hold after like a leap up. Normally with that attack you'll leap up and slam down. Instead, at the peak of the jump you can let out a bolt that's charged up already and hang in the air. This allows you for easy vertical movement. Interestingly, with that thrust forward leap, you can leap upwards after that, and then we can let out a bolt to hang in the air at that point, dashing forward, up, and then hanging. In that time, you could charge up another bolt to go for another dash, another jump up, and another hang in the air, allowing for some seriously high mobility if you're able to pull off this quite long combo. At the base level though, you can just jump up and let off a bolt, and that gives you new vertical movement. And if you get good at this order of the mechanics, you can do some seriously cool movement. Almost at the end here, we come to the Magic Archer. For this one, it's pretty simple, and just something I didn't know until recently. At the bottom right, we have the ability Conversion, and as you'll probably know, this changes between the wide or tight angle of your R1. When you're aiming in on targets, it allows for more focused DPS for better burst, or if you're aiming on multiple targets and you want to AoE them to hit multiple targets, you can make it wider. The thing I didn't know is instead of using Conversion normally in that kind of a slower, clunkier way, you can, while aiming in, press the right stick in on a controller and swap between them, going to the single target or focus shots, or going to the AoE one very smoothly without really interrupting what you're doing in your aiming. I know that if I stop aiming and press triangle, well then I'll swap between the two types. Great, but when I'm aiming in with the R1 and I press triangle, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to use a weapon skill, of course. So I can't actually change when I'm aiming in unless I'm using the right stick, which is a really nice thing to know. And I don't know why they don't tell you, or it's not on the UI or whatever. So hopefully if you're playing Magic Archer, that becomes a useful thing to know. Our ninth vocation is of course Trickster. And the tip about this one is, guys, that this is actually a vocation and you can choose to change to it and play it. Not many people seem to know this. Obviously, I'm just kidding, but not entirely. I really don't gel with this one myself. So if you guys have anything interesting or useful about Tricksters, then please drop it in the comments. I expect there's a lot that you could say about it if it's something that a lot of people were interested in. But my tip here is about Allure. It enables you to raise your affinity with people more easily, but the problem is that it's one of the highest ranked augments you're going to unlock from the Trickster, which means you're going to have to play this vocation a good amount before you get it. Is this really worth it? Through data mining, we know that this is actually a 10% increase to how fast you get affinity with people, and I don't think that's very much. So my tip really is that it's a 10% increase, and I definitely don't think it's really all that worth it. It's much more worth it to play Trickster temporarily to unlock detection, so that you can find your seeker tokens and any bonus wakestone shards in your vicinity with the help of that sound and blinking light effect. And lastly, we have the one for Warfarer. By playing as a Warfarer, you can of course level all vocations at once. The issue is that you're going to be getting a lot less XP generally than actually playing any one specific one. But if you have a lot of vocations that you've got unlocked and you want to work on, but that starting point is so awkward when you have so few weapon skills or the weaker versions of them, you don't even have the base core skills, what you can do is play a Warfarer and get a load of them going at once. But one vocation style is actually quite good for playing Warfarer in this case, and that's Archer. Their base stats are actually very similar. The downside to Warfarer normally is that for whatever vocations you're running, you don't have access to the master skills. But with the Archer's master skill, Heavenly Shot, being so unreliable because it requires this strange pinpoint accuracy with this charged shot that's going to cost all your stamina, by the way, it's actually not so big of a loss to not have access to that. So you can essentially play as an Archer, having 3 or 4 if you don't use rearmament weapon skills as an Archer, just under the Warfarer vocation. And yet at the same time, you'll be leveling up all the vocations at once very efficiently because of that. Probably the least invasive way to do it. Though you would be missing out on, say, running a combo of Thief with the splitter weapon skill and the Flare from Sorcerer, which is just the ultimate DPS combo. So it's up to you. But there you have it. That's one or a couple little tips or details for each vocation. And once again, if you do know anything that would fit with this theme, you can drop it in the comments. You might help someone, and I'd personally love to learn even more about these vocations. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice. to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage is, goodbye.